So I just got an email from my past self, and it kind of led me to an existential crisis that I'm still kind of processing. So I'm going to use this episode to basically be my own therapist here and walk you through some of my self-reflections about time management, feeling busy all the time, feeling behind, and just general growth stuff when it comes to being the best person you can be to grow your business and live a more fulfilling life. So, welcome to the ADHD Content Creator Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer, aka Vegan Tech Nomad. I just use this as a platform to yap my random thoughts. Apparently, some people find it very helpful, and I want to listen back to this when I'm a little bit older just to see the growth. So, it's kind of like me documenting my journey as well. I want to give you a summary of what I'm going to talk about today because I have a little outline here. I'm basically going to be talking about these feelings of people in their 20s or like actually I think it's age like it doesn't matter what age you are, but like for me, I'm 26 right now and I realize I've always felt busy. So I want to talk a little bit about that, about prioritization, because we have limited time on this earth, and some therapy vibes, including a very interesting email I got from a high schooler. So before I start, I just want to remind you, please don't forget to subscribe. Apparently, you can leave comments on Spotify, which I only found out because somebody left a nice comment in the podcast, which I very much appreciate. So don't forget to subscribe and support me if you can. I would really appreciate that. So now I want to talk about these things that I've been feeling recently because I see a lot of people struggle with procrastination, and I'm like a productivity influencer. Technically, I'm not supposed to struggle with procrastination, but I still do. Well, not just procrastination, but distraction. I'm literally making this podcast to procrastinate making this course that people have paid for. They paid money for this course that I have yet to make, and I told them that the course would be ready for them in like 4 days. So I need to get started on that. I'm so excited for it, but there's some admin work involved and like getting started, especially pushing through the admin work is always the most painful part. Like I excel at the creative work. So I still do procrastinate, although I tend to just speed things up near the deadline and then everything gets done. But why would I put that stress on myself? It's how I operate best. Apparently, a lot of people with ADHD relate to that. And I just want to talk about this feeling of being busy, overwhelmed, feeling like you're falling behind or you're stuck. Because when I think about it, I read my emails to myself. So this email I had was from 2024 last year, but it was prompted by another email I wrote to myself from 2022. And I just kept writing, I'm so busy as usual in all of these emails. And even before 2022, I was busy with school. I think back to it and I'm like, wait, I have always been so busy. But then what was I busy with? What was the work that I was doing? I don't remember the work. I only remember the people. And I'll talk more about that later because this is a realization that a lot of people spend decades, like maybe their whole lives, not even realizing how important connections with others are. But this email to myself just got me thinking like, why am I wearing busy as a badge of honor? Because isn't time our most valuable resource? Like, we never get that back once we spend it. We should be spending it doing what we want. We should be making the most out of it. But if you're always busy, 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 that means I feel like it means you're not enjoying the time that you're spending. So basically, you can look at it two ways. One, you have limited time on this earth, so you want to maximize its usage, meaning you have to be super busy, you need to do a lot of things. Or you have limited time on this earth, so why would you spend your time being super stressed out trying to do everything when you can just pick a few things that you like to do and just relax? So, this is actually something in this book that I read called Algorithms to Live By. It's an amazing book. I procrastinated finishing it, but from what I read, the parts that I read were pretty good. There was this one part that talked about like when you're very young, you want to do everything. And I think that's where I'm at right now. I'm like in my 20s. I want to try out all these different things to see what I like because you're still in that explore, exploit phase, I think they call it. But as you get older, your inner circle of friends start becoming tighter. You don't explore new restaurants. You prefer restaurants you already like. And that's because you know you're like approaching life's final deadline and you want to be sure that you can spend your time doing things you already know you enjoy instead of wasting your time, which you never get back, exploring all these different options and you might not even enjoy it. So I guess depending on your age, being busy might be a good thing or a bad thing. Like for me, I guess it's more neutral now. But I just remember as a kid, I didn't feel very busy. Even though I had all this time in my life, I did not feel busy. I remember spending time on creative hobbies. I was literally at the library reading so many books. That's actually how I learned how to knit, not from YouTube videos. I learned origami and knitting from library books, which let me tell you was so difficult because I was too impatient to read the instructions. So I just looked at the pictures, and some of those pictures were very confusing. And when YouTube became a thing, I started watching origami tutorials on YouTube, and it was actually so cool because I would watch these creators and like 7-year-old me would be the biggest fan of them, and I remember commenting on one of their videos and the creator actually responded, and that was like the best thing that had happened to me back then. I was like fangirling so much, like, oh my gosh, they noticed me. So like that kind of joy in my childhood, I was like fully not busy, present, exploring my hobbies. Like maybe I had more time and less responsibilities back then, but it was really like I was not busy and I was pretty happy for it, I think. I would spend my time doing things I enjoyed. Of course, I didn't have a phone back then, so maybe that helped. So I remember actually me and my sister used to help babysit, aka just hang out. So like my mom would be babysitting, but we would just be hanging out with one of our friends. And we would babysit him a lot. And on the days where he came over and we had all these imaginative games, like we had this big yoga ball and then we put a mattress on top of it and we pretended we were on a ship and it was like a storm and it was so fun and wild. Like we would just make up all these stories, run around in the backyard, climb trees. I hated the sap that got sticky on my fingers. So we would do all that. And on those days, after his parents got home from work, our friend did not want to leave. He wanted to stay behind and keep playing. But, we got into computer games as we got older. And when that happened, we noticed it was still pretty fun in front of the computer playing the games, like multiplayer games or like watching people play games. So, like, maybe one of us would be on the computer and the other one would watch. And it was still really fun. Like, I remember it being fun, but when his mom was done work, ready to pick him up, he would always just leave. He wouldn't beg to stay and keep playing because, like, a computer game, even if it's multiplayer, I guess you can play anywhere. Like, you can go home and keep playing. And now I'm thinking, like, the more I'm on social media, even though I try not to be, but it's kind of hard as a content creator, you kind of have to be on social media. The more I'm on it, the more I feel like my brain is changing. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, probably bad, but I feel like the stuff that I have to do, like the work that I have to get done, it's just I push it away and I look through my notifications. And if there's no notifications, I look through my social media feed and look for something new. Like it always has to be new and exciting and fun. And when I'm talking to people, it's fine because like the conversations are interesting and fun. But when I am sitting by myself, or like there's a break in the conversation, or like somebody's doing something else, and I'm just sitting there by myself, I always get this urge to like look at my phone, look through my notifications, see if there's anything new. If there's nothing new, I need to open a social media app and like look at what new posts people are having. And I'm like, suddenly 20 minutes are gone. And I know it's 20 minutes because I check my 24/7 timer because I track my time 24/7 and I feel bad about it. And that timer is on, like I can see it on my screen, like no matter what I'm doing. So like even though I see it and I know it's bad, I still do it sometimes. So I don't know what to do with that. You can do with that what you will, but I do know that on days where I have something exciting to do, I can add something to my life. Like I have this project I want to do, I will hyperfixate on it. I will be busy, but like is not, I don't think it's busy. It's more like I'm having fun with it. I will literally spend all the time on this project and not feel tempted to check my phone at all because the project was just so fun. And this reminds me of a psychology study I read once because I majored in psychology, but I don't know if this was taught in class or anything. You might have to double check the validity of this study, but basically they had these rats and they had like cocaine or some kind of drug for these rats. And the rats that were put in a very boring environment would just like press this button to get drugged up all the time. But the rats that were in this like basically amusement park for rats, like they were having the time of their lives, even though they tried the drug, they did not get addicted because they were like, well, why would we press this button for this high when we can just go play on this amusement park that is more fun or like just as fun? So I found that interesting, and I'm trying to, I guess, make it easier for me to have that amusement park. So like I have this Notion page and desktop background and like just a mood board image of things that I can do instead of just scrolling on my phone. So like things that add enrichment to my life. Not It's not like taking away the phone because my loss aversion is so strong. I'm like, I don't want to lose this. It's adding something new, something that I enjoy. And sometimes I forget to check that list. So, what could be very helpful, I haven't tried this yet, but this is just an idea that I'm throwing out there, is setting check in times for when you know, like you're in between meetings, in between tasks, like those lulls in the day where you're most likely to pick up your phone and scroll the time away. Put an alarm for those times. And the alarm can just act as a reminder to like shake you out of those common habits and be like, hey, is there something else you should be doing right now? And then it links to that page that you have with all these other cool projects that you can be excited about. So those are just some of the thoughts I have. And I just want to close off this section about feelings because the next thing I'm going to talk about is prioritization. But let me just wrap up all of my feelings of like busyness, falling behind, feeling overwhelmed. It is okay to feel this way. Like that's the main takeaway I want to convey to you if you're listening, or like even to my future self if I want to listen back to this episode as like a vibe check therapy session thing. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. Don't let that discourage you from taking action. This should empower you and inspire you to be better. And in psychology, we learn that recovery is not a linear process. Like relapse is part of that recovery process. So if you're not 100% perfect, you're not 100% always being productive, whatever that means, it's okay. You can take breaks. You can scroll on your phone here and there. What's important is you always get back and keep trying to be better because consistency is built in months and years, not days and weeks. So, the next section is on prioritization, and I have a story here to share about my university days, and this was kind of a wake up call for me. So, I started a startup with some of my friends. It eventually died out, but I learned a lot from it. And I remember a lot of people praised me. I was the marketing person for the startup, and everybody was like, Jen, you work so fast. Because I was in charge of the social media, and I would have a month's worth of posts out and ready to go in just a few hours. But is that really what was important? Sure, I can pump out all these posts and it's like, wow, your work is amazing. You got so much done in that time. But is that really the best use of my time? Because I thought we needed to do social media posts. I wanted our feed to look pretty. I wanted to put out this content that would be useful. But this startup, we were an education startup. We sold courses teaching people tech skills so that they can get experience and internships because it's that chicken and egg problem with you need experience to get a job, but you need to get a job before you get experience. So we were trying to solve that problem. And social media posts were not what was going to get us students for our courses unless we went viral or something, which was pretty unlikely because they were just image posts like carousels. What would have had the highest ROI or the best impact is if I emailed some organizations that have links to our target demographic of students, people who are interested in tech skills, because we taught data analysis, financial literacy, UX design, etc. So if I had emailed organizations and partnered with them, they could have send an email directly to the inboxes of their students, and we could have gotten students for our courses. I should have spent time digging up those key partners and reaching out to them instead of posting social media posts that nobody were gonna see. So the key lesson here is prioritization, because this took me a long time to realize like I was wasting my time with some of my tasks. Even now I look through my to-do list, like, every time I clean it out, it just piles up again and I'm like, hmm, I have been putting a lot of things on this list off for a long time. I've procrastinated it. But did anything bad happen? No, because I always got the most important things done. The things with deadlines coming up, the things that I cared about. So I was like, is everything on this to-do list like I don't even need to do it? Why was I overwhelming myself trying to do all of this? Because time is something you never get back. Like, I don't want to be spending all my time organizing my to-do list on, like, that's not even that important. A lot of the things on that list were like boring admin work I could have outsourced to somebody else or just straight up eliminated because, like, it wasn't even gonna matter. So, I have another story here, and this was something like some wisdom that people older than me shared with me because they were thinking back to their 20s. Like, I'm in their 20s right now, and they are like past their 20s. So they worked a lot in their 20s because it's like you want to have a secure future, you want to have enough money to live and like be free to travel, etc. So you basically just grind in your 20s. And I definitely resonate with that because I was like working so hard all the time in university and even when I graduated. And to be honest, I don't remember the days that I spent working. Like, I look back at my happiness scores, it was all like neutral when I worked the entire day. And these people I talked to, they were like, yeah, I don't remember much in my 20s. I just spent all my time working. And this is like a decade of your life that you never get back when you're young and healthy. And of course, people don't regret that because you're building wealth for your future. Like, you can enjoy your 30s and build towards like a good retirement, etc. But not remembering a lot of a whole decade of your life, I am just like, wow, that scares me a little bit. And I think that's how we're expected to live. Like, you fit in life in between all the work that you have to do, like all the chores, all the like your full-time job, your studies, school, and it's like, is that really the best way to live? So I know in my 20s, my happiest times were when I put in the effort to reach out to friends, to host parties and picnics. Like, there was one summer where I hosted and went to so many parties, met so many new people. Like, I was thriving back then. And the winter of that year, I went viral. So, like, the good energy, like, something happened. I felt like my cup was so full. I was like overflowing with so much energy. And I remember that summer a lot. I still think about it, even though it was years ago. But then I think back before that and after that, when I was like working or in an internship or in school, I'm like, what do I even remember? Do I remember my grades? No, not really. I remember the events I went to, the events I hosted, the people I met who I'm still close friends with today. It's always the people. And I knew this. I studied psychology. Social ties are the number one predictor of longevity and well being and life satisfaction. So, you spend all your time working instead of like going home to spend time with your family, your friends. And it's like suddenly you look back and you're like, what do I even remember? What did I do in all those years? Like, one night where you have fun with friends you could still remember it years and years from now. You can still talk about it and laugh about it. But then that one night or multiple nights spent working, it's like, will you remember what you worked on? Like, of course, I feel like I am pretty ambitious and I'm a hard worker, but it's like you need to work smart, not hard. As a founder, sometimes I find myself doing the boring admin work that does not even matter when the higher ROI work, and I know the exact ROI because I track all of my finances for my business and I track my time 24/7, including the specific tasks I do in my business. I can share all those spreadsheets with you if you want to see. It would have to be in another episode where I can share my screen and everything. Let me know in the comments if you want me to bump up that episode in the priority list. But when I just look at it, I know that my 10 out of 10 days, the days that I ranked my happiness as the happiest days, were when I spent time with friends, with people who lifted me up and energized me, having really good conversations, laughing and joking around. And that's also why I've kept a daily journal for like 10 years now, since 2015. I have entries from high school before I went vegan. I've been vegan for 9 years. So this is like the longest standing habit of my life, right? Journaling. And sometimes we forget things. Like we forget a lot more than you'd expect. And I guess part of the reason why I've been so consistent with journaling is because I know the value of these memories and I'm so scared of forgetting these good times. So sometimes I'll look back in the journal and I'll find like a specific entry or a time I spent with somebody and I read through the details that I wrote, and it only takes like 30 minutes. No, it takes like 15 minutes or less per night for me to type up these entries and do all my habit tracking stuff. And it's just so worth it because I'm reading these entries and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot about this tiny detail from this conversation that we had that was so good. And I enjoyed it so much and we laughed so hard. Like, even if these people aren't in my lives anymore, I'm like, wow, I'm just so grateful I had that experience because the time we have is limited, but then also I have a terrible memory. So if I can't remember it, I feel like I wasted it, even though that's not true. It's just like a fear that I have. And so that's why I track so much. Like, it's not just living life intentionally, but like I feel like I do live in the moment a lot. But it's like when I look back on these things, it's also living intentionally. When things are happening, I pay extra attention to them because I know I want to remember this and journal this later. So it's not just like people always ask me, like, you track your life all the time. Like, do you even find time to be present? Like, this must be a person who is just, go, 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 like, doesn't even pay attention to living in the moment. And the reason that I track is because I live in the moment too much. And then I immediately forget the past and don't think about the future. Like, you have to learn from the past to be better in the future, like, be a better person. Otherwise, you're just gonna keep repeating the same patterns. And then you're wondering, like, why does nobody like me? Why can't I make friends? Why am I so lonely? Like, you need to learn from your past experiences. And if you can't remember those experiences, then, like, you're just gonna spend your whole life stuck in these patterns. And of course, there are people like therapists who can help you break those patterns and make observations to help you with that. But this journaling just helps me so much. And this is related to the next story I want to tell, which goes into therapy vibes. So this is a good segue, but I just want to recap this prioritization section, which is what I hear a lot of founders say. You have to do less to do more. Because right now, due to my shiny object syndrome, I have so many products. People literally DM me saying, how can I pay for your stuff? Like, I can't find anything. And it's because everything's scattered. I'm doing too much. I'm overwhelmed because I'm like, I have to do all of this stuff. But no, simplicity is key. Yesterday, somebody told me she wanted my course because of how simple I make things. Like, there's just one thing to check off for you to reach your goals. And that really is the solution for me, at least. Simplicity is key because that's what helps you prioritize. It helps you focus on what's the most important. So going forward, I don't know what that means for my business. I'll probably just focus on one key product offering and just hardcore promote that. And I can have all my other stuff, of course, but it's like you focus on one thing, eyes on the prize. Now, this next section, therapy vibes. So yesterday I got an email from a high schooler. I'll read out his question to you. It was very interesting. I love this question. It says, if you were to restart, what's one specific aspect of your life you wish you had tracked earlier? And at first, I immediately thought time tracking 24/7 because I was always wondering after work, I just shower and sleep and then it's work again. Like, what is happening here? Where is all my time going? I wanted to have hobbies. I wanted to learn so much. I wanted to do all these things, but I don't have time for it. Like, where is the time going? And so I started tracking my time 24/7 so I could vibe check myself and actually see for my own eyes where the time is going. Because looking at my calendar was not accurate because a lot of the times I would get distracted and do something else. So I had to have this manual timer to be like, okay, this is where I actually spent my time versus my calendar where I wanted to spend my time. And while it was very valuable, I feel like, because like the act of tracking did change my behavior for the better a little bit. Like, I feel bad if I have to change the timer to say like doom scroll time. So most of the time, if I have to do that, I'll just be like, okay, wait, vibe check. Do I really need to doom scroll right now? So that's actually not my answer to this high schooler who emailed me. It was this new habit I started that a lot of my students in my life tracking course, they're like, I can't believe I didn't think of this because a lot of them are like, wow, you journaled for like 10 years. How can you do that? Because they think journaling needs to be perfect. You need to write a lot in your journal. But it's like, no, you can just write one sentence. So every night I write one sentence reflection because right now I'm trying to work on advocating for my needs and boundaries more and really understanding myself more. So I have this journaling prompt that's like, were you true to yourself today? Did you advocate for your needs, your boundaries? Like, were you basically standing up for yourself? Because I'm a huge people pleaser. I think it's like ADHD related. I learned about this rejection sensitivity thing, and there is this account on Instagram, ADHD founder. His name's Eugene. He's super cool. I'm trying to get him to be a guest on this podcast, but he acted out the skit, and it was like, oh, I have rejection sensitivity. And somebody was like, oh, yeah, you're boring. Like, would you think about that insult for like the rest of your life? And he's like, well, it's only true if I believe it. And that is so true because I thought I had such thick skin. But then I was like, then why am I such a people pleaser? Why am I afraid to say no to people? And it's because these criticisms, even if they're not intended as criticisms, it's just like sometimes I take it too personally. They only hit personally when I believe it. So if somebody calls me boring, I'm like, "Ugh, please, me and my 70K followers beg to differ. So I don't believe that. It doesn't hit me. I'm like, yeah, I have thick skin. But if somebody is like, you are annoying, you are too much, you like a lot of things, I'm like, okay, wait, these are my own insecurities. Then I start to be like, okay, this sucks. I'm like taking it personally. And I want you to be aware of something I just said that, like, this is what I usually do with other people. Like, I'll observe the words that they use very closely because I said, me and my 70K followers beg to differ. You see how I'm using these external numbers as a way to like boost my own self-esteem and like basing my self-worth on these numbers, these external numbers that I can't even control. And this is something that I talked about with a friend too, because as soon as he started detaching himself from the numbers, because he was trying to grow his business as well, he was trying to grow on TikTok, making videos and getting into content creation. And he wasn't really growing, and he did not like looking at his previous videos because he was like, oh, the numbers aren't good. They're not getting views. Like, I don't want to deal with this. Like, he wanted to avoid it. But something changed. Like, he had a mindset change. And again, I'm going to try and get this friend on the podcast as well because he is so wise and so humble. So something changed and he detached his self-worth from the numbers. So now he was able to look at his previous videos and see like, okay, the views aren't good. Let's look at the analytics to see how I can improve this and like, be better. And then his videos have like 5 million views now and they are blowing up. Like he got a little bit overwhelmed and then now he's trying to be more humble and like chill out for a bit and not overwork himself. Like all about balance, right? Very wise of him. So I'm still working on like not attaching my self-worth to the numbers. I keep having to remind myself like, there was that podcast episode, the first intro episode I posted, and it did not get thousands of views. It only got a few hundred when I first posted it. And I was just thinking like, oh, I was so excited about this. Like, this is not doing numbers. Like, what happened? But then I had to remember, like, no, I'm doing this where it's like, if I can help just one person, if I can positively impact just one more person, then, it's worth it. Like, I don't care about the views. I just care about, like, really connecting with that one person who can resonate with what I'm saying. And I actually did get a lot of comments. Like, a lot of people were very supportive because while it didn't get a lot of views, like, all of my friends and a lot of people from my Instagram, because I promoted it on my Instagram as well, they were leaving such nice comments and feedback. And I was like, wow, so touched. Like, it's so nice to hear. Like, even though I'm trying not to like attach myself and my self-worth to other people's perceptions of me and like trying to be more secure in myself, I was like, wow, this is really nice. Like, this is the energy that I want. So I like screenshotted things and then put them in my wins document because it's just like a nice boost. Like, if you get a weird hate comment and then you're like, okay, let me look at the wins document, because our brains are wired to remember the negative more than the positive. So I have to have this wins document to always remind myself, like, I'm doing this for a reason. I need to stay connected to my mission of positively impacting other people and not get discouraged, because consistency always wins. So I also have a note in my outline, which I literally wrote like 2 minutes before pressing record because I just felt so inspired after getting that letter from my past self. And it says, friend restaurant hate. And I was like, what does this mean? What was I thinking about here? But now I'm remembering. So this goes back to the people pleaser thing because, again, I was such a people pleaser. Well, maybe I still am, but hopefully not as much anymore. And I was thinking about it because I always valued honesty in my friends. Like, if my friends are direct with me, if they're roasting me, I appreciate that because it's like they're being honest. I can trust them to say what they mean instead of just like saying something and I'm not even sure if they're telling the truth. But then I was like, I am not that friend. I appreciate this trait in other people, but I don't even have that trait. Because, like, let's say somebody asks me, do you want to go to this restaurant? And the only vegan option there for me is fries. I'll be like, oh, sure, if you really like this restaurant, let's go. Because I'm like, you want to go. I put you above myself. But then I was thinking, if I was a good friend and somebody else was like, "Oh, I can only eat fries at this restaurant, but let's go because you want to go." I'd be like, "No, we are picking another restaurant so we can both be happy. Like, this friendship matters more to me than some random restaurant." So I was like, "Okay, why would I just assume that my friends would not like me anymore if I was like, hey, let's go to another restaurant and like actually stood up for my needs, because I'm sure they wouldn't want me to be sitting at this restaurant that I don't really like." So I had to see it as like helping myself also helps others. Because if other people are seeing you thriving, being secure, and like being confident, advocating for your needs, it kind of also gives them permission to do the same. It's like I discovered when I started being more open and vulnerable and like sharing my struggles with my friends, they got permission to also share their struggles with me. And like I got so much closer with some of my friends the last year because of that. And like I feel like I have such a strong support network now because I was able to be more honest with myself and be more vulnerable with other people. And I see a lot of people struggle making friends, and I just think sometimes it really is about putting in the effort. And hot take, but a lot of people don't want to put in the effort. They feel like it's too much work. They don't have practice in social situations, maybe, but then they are too scared to get that practice because people say that my videos are so natural, my energy is so good, which thank you, but this was not what it was like in the start. Like I had to put in a lot of practice to get here. And a lot of people are like, oh, this is too much work. Like I should prioritize my career and make money. But it's like, well, let's say you're retired, you have all this money. What are you going to do? You can't spend your whole life alone. Humans are social creatures. So really making an effort to prioritize social connection, asking people to hang out, being okay with people saying no, that I think is really what is going to completely change your life because it has changed mine. So now we come to the outro. Thank you so much for listening to my therapized rant. And make sure to like, comment, subscribe, etc. Leave a comment if anything in particular resonated with you. I know I yapped a lot. And you can always find me on all social media at Vegan Tech Nomad. Thank you for listening.